Sheerlee here with siriustalesmoon. This is Jupiter hour, and we're about to have a soul day. So it's Mercury night still. This is Civil War Clock News. I definitely need a new channel for Civil War Clock News. Midheaven is 10 degrees Virgo, applying to Ketu. Ascendant is 0 degrees Sag. And Jupiter here in the 8th house. The moon is in the 11th house, 17 degrees Libra, with Venus in 16 degrees Jupiter sign. Um, Bulgaria is joining and I have to admit, a couple of these weeks I was watching travel videos and I was called to watch Bulgaria, but I was tending to my North Node and I'm like, what's with Bulgaria? I mean, um, great astrologers from there. But then today I received the news that the Bulgarian government has resigned with the Skulls and Bones / Gen Z protests. Yeah, no, it's my. So this is Civil War Clock News, and I want to check a chart of Bulgaria. Now, of course, because it's happening in a country, very likely people like Rasia Tasio, um, I don't know if they will be able to talk about everything right now. So I don't know the everything, but I'm a person outside of Bulgaria, and so this is what I see in the natal chart reading. So it's not all encompassing. And this is chart of Bulgaria from October 5, 1908, 11 a.m. Monday. And this is Veliko Tarnovo, Bulgaria. We have ascendant at 5 degrees Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, like United States, with Jupiter 4 degrees. And indeed, the moon was going over this Jupiter in the 10th house, which is, of course, rulers, and the government resigned. Um, the descendant is Gemini, and so while it's not a Uranus return in any way, shape, or form for Bulgaria, Uranus going through the 7th house does create a civil war that will have also external conflicts, upheavals, implications. Very much like the Uranus return in the United States, but without it being a Uranus return. Okay, because Uranus going through the 7th house is fights, conversations, changes, unusual things happening in the borders or with allies and enemies. And Uranus in Gemini is civil war clock. And so this is indeed a part of what we see. Bulgaria has Pluto and Rahu in Gemini in the 7th house, with Mercury in the 12th. So the thought about putting this is very interesting because Rahu in the 7th is learning to form allies. Pluto can give both powerful allies and enemies. Rahu Pluto is growing powerful allies and enemies that are either far away, because this is ruler in the 12th house, with Mars here. Mars is in Virgo in the 10th, and or also ruled by the rulers. Mars with Lilith is bringing the topic of sexual sovereignty to be imperative for any ruling to be able to rule without having um, without it being outthrown. Okay? Mars Lilith, the war is about sexual sovereignty. And again, I have no idea why. Okay? I have no idea why and what. Um, but Lilith is sexual sovereignty, and there can be destruction of cities. If there are enemies or allies that do, you know what I think about? I think about Ukraine. In Ukraine, the Jews in Ukraine, in Crimea particularly, define themselves as Russians, but when the people would come to Oman, Rabbi Nachman thingy, there would be a shit ton of human trafficking. And then there was the Ukrainians would be happy to clear that, particularly when it's their daughters, their this, their that, you know. It's a thing. So that became a topic of discussion, and Putin saw it as a chance or an opportunity to take over Crimea. But the issue that why Crimea is so controversial and why the Jews suffered a lot in Crimea has to do with the trafficking that happens around the Rabbi Nachman Oman. Okay, I remind you that there was a Jewish human trafficking ring that trafficked Jews and worked with the Nazis. I don't know about Oman, but that thing really undermined and still undermines even the existence of Israel. And we saw how 7th of October was really allowed, a megalithic, and there was indeed ritual sacrifice. Those things are absolutely not a lie, whether we see it as a false flag or not. But this was because of the extortion cults and human trafficking. In Bulgaria, chart to see something very similar, that the allies and open enemies, if Bulgaria does not maintain sexual sovereignty, here it means that the rulers, it will affect directly the government and also the reputation of Bulgaria. There are no excuses about sexual sovereignty, okay? It's not about purity. Rape is rape. And if people are going to do detour of that, they will end themselves in the powerful hands conquered by enemies. Or conquered by allies, which is, okay, that's a part of what can happen. But if there will be sexual sovereignty, there would be an intelligence advantage that the rulers have. But only with sexual sovereignty will they receive cohesive information. All the things I've been talking about, and I see them coming to be in Bulgaria, because if there's no sexual sovereignty, if there is sexual sovereignty, through treating, through hidden contracts, and sexual sovereignty also means in hospitals and jails, particularly military ones. Mars is military, Scorpio, and particularly the psychological aspect of the healing. You know, in every healing, there's a staff, so there would be psychiatrist, psychologist, operation team, and so on. Anything that is hematology, okay, for the blood, and the psychology, because it's the mental health aspect of, if it is the blood, so the mental health aspects of, and of course to do with genitals, but this is where they cannot make detour about this, because it would bring them being ruled by rulers that are even not Bulgarian. Okay, so I know the society itself is very traditional, and sometimes even paying a lot of emphasis about purity, but this is, without sexual sovereignty, there's no purity. It can play to the hands of something that would be very bad for Bulgaria. Now, I don't know why the Gen Zers are protesting. Saturn in Aries, which means that Bulgaria is about to have a Saturn return, and again ruled by this Mars that points to the conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. There can be destruction of cities. You see, destruction of cities can only be allowed when there's human trafficking in the cities. It's not about whores, it's about sexual sovereignty. It's not because they're whores, it's because they were raped and trafficked. Not going about in a detour around that is not going to be good for Bulgaria to maintain a sovereignty. And Saturn is structure, so the structures around children, the sovereignty of children. Volken, what's on? Okay? It's not just Bulgaria, but I'm looking right now at the chart because the government resigned. Venus 26 degrees Leo, Neptune in Cancer in the 8th house, Moon in Aquarius, also United States has Moon in Aquarius. Pluto is in more giant steps than we believe approaching the Moon. It will be, by Valentine's Day, Pluto will be 4 degrees Aquarius. Before we know it, 2-3 years it reaches this Moon, and the Moon is the people, which are ruled by this Saturn in Aries. The people want sovereignty, and they want to be as sovereign as the rulers. Now here's the thing, if people are going to play it as, oh, the people will also get to rape and get away with that, then Bulgaria will not have sovereignty. Genghis Khan cloak, okay, I mentioned that. But if the people will play it to be sovereign and be rulers as the people with sexual sovereignty, it means no excuse. There's no the word whore cannot be in a sexually sovereign country or in a sovereign country. Culturally, if they would do it like that, this will be a country that will sustain, but all other countries will be ruled by other countries, because they will be in allyship and competitive advantage, intelligence-wise, to both their rulers and allies and open enemies. But if this is not the case, the Bulgaria will not be a sovereign country. The people will be like the rulers. They will be able to supposedly rape and get away with that, but then be extorted, assassinated, and so on, as in extortion cults. Very scary chart. I remember that this is charts from 1908, and when we had Uranus going from the 6th to the 7th, okay, last time it was World War II. It was actually not the Nazis, but the and not even the Bolsheviks, the partisans that were raping Bulgarian women and were taking over. And it was particularly painful because the partisans were fighting the Nazis. This is the power of the situation where so many women were raped and were called whore. Okay? It is because if they would be called whore by the women, then okay? And then unfortunately it happened and it's the same chart. It's charts from 1908. It's the same chart, and this is exactly what happened. Is exactly, I'm sorry, why the partisans could get advantage to do this thing to Bulgaria is because of this internal thing that to begin with, if somebody would be raped, they would be considered whore. Or if somebody had sex outside marriage, immediately considered whore, sometimes maybe even forced to marry. And that cannot be. That brings situation like the partisans that they did such terrible things. But all of these things are the rage of the dead bodies upon dead bodies, of when children, when women were raped and were called a whore and not believed. Or a lady, even if they were not raped and had a sex outside marriage, were called impure. That cannot sustain. It gives place to enemy to take over. And wherever there's Black Moon Lilith, there's no excuses. Black Moon Lilith is sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter. There's no excuses. And Mars, it means the only way to succeed in military and intelligence is with sexual sovereignty. To rape so that people will be sexpionage is bringing exactly what the opposite. It's bringing the loss of sovereignty and loss of intelligence power, which unfortunately is very likely what happened during the Second World War. Okay, 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 okay. So I think we pretty much got what they figured the issue, and this is very important because it's not just for the government that resigned, it's for the people in general, and also for those that rebel.